Okay, almost going. I just want to double check that we are live streaming this. Okay, everyone, thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for introducing yourself in the chat box. Everyone that has just joined, it's so great to see you. I see Green Dome Capital. Thank you. We do capital raising and medium-sized company, also help them improve BE. So you're a great place. We also have someone from West Coast. So welcome, welcome. Okay, so what I want to quickly do is our presenter today is Hilton Johnson from the Compliance Hub, one of the leading BE compliance companies in the country, not only specializing in BE, but all other compliance as well for companies. Hilton Johnson is an expert business entrepreneur coming from a corporate background and always been an entrepreneur starting multiple businesses. Now, Hilton is doing a lunch webinar on a weekly basis for people to come and join and learn from. We've talked about sales and marketing and all the things related to business, from how to set your price, etc. So what we've done is we've created an online portal where all of these recordings will be uploaded. I just want to get my screen on, where all of this will be uploaded. So if you want access to that, we will be sending out an email. If you don't get any replies, please reach out to me and my assistant with your email address. It is taryn@quibusvisser.com. It is in the chat box, but we will also send out an email. And if you don't mind, for those who are on these webinars, we will also add your email address for those who've registered and give access. So please don't email me, and it's a gift that we're giving you, so don't be mad at me when we do that. It's we want to give all of you. Okay, so today we are ready. We're going to talk about a topic that is close to my heart, because most people don't understand the power of BE in our country and how it can benefit all of us. And I'm looking forward to Hilton's presentation to help us and to see how it can lead to our success of our business, not only in South Africa. I think one part of Hilton's presentation, he will show you that these type of compliances is around the world. And please look at the opportunity of growing your business and creating how can I say, a multi-successful business in South Africa and expanding to the world. Hilton, welcome. Thank you for this every Thursday lunch webinar. I know it is your time, and as a friend, as a client, as coming up 3 years now, I really appreciate you giving your time. You have a lot of knowledge, and I really commend people to reach out to you, have a coffee, a Zoom coffee with you, and to see how you can assist them in their companies, but also to learn from you, and who knows what can lead from this. Hilton, I'm going to give over to you. We are live streaming. I will monitor the social media side to make sure if there's any questions. If any of you have questions, please pop it in the chat box. I will allow at the end, if you want to ask a question, please let me also know in the chat box when I need to unmute you. And let's make this an interactive as much as possible. If not, it's only you that's going to lose out, because in the end of the day, if you don't ask questions, you're not going to learn. So Hilton, thank you. It's over to you.
Awesome. Thanks very much. And welcome to everybody. I certainly hope you're going to find some use in this, and there's going to be some benefit to you. It's BE is really important in your business. Without it, you're not going to go places. It's going to become more and more of an issue for you. So there's a big misconception that BE is purely a South African phenomenon that's there. It's not, and I've just put this up just to give you an idea that it's running throughout Africa in different forms. So a lot of companies talk about, I'll just pack my bags and I'll move over the border. Well, you're going to be in for a rude awakening there. So for companies that do a lot of cross-border trade, I suggest to every company, open up an export division for your company as well, because you don't want to double pay under South African BE laws and then under a Namibian or a Zimbabwe or Malawi or a Zambia. But you don't want to have to restructure your company locally for those entities as well, which becomes an issue for you. So I'm not going to go through everything here. It is all available on the net. And if you need any more details on any of that, please feel free to ask me immediately. So what is the purpose behind BEE? Well, I think let me start off by saying, do I personally believe in BEE? And I'm like the messenger from Eskom that says, the power is out and everybody wants to fight with me, but it's also out in my home, in my own home. So I suffer as much as everybody else is suffering under BEE. The biggest misconception of BEE is that I have to give away 51% of my business and I have to replace my board with previously disadvantaged Black South Africans, and I've got to restructure everything. It's not true. There are many ways around it. It's the same as taxation. If you look at what you expected to pay and what you actually pay in taxation are years apart. So you need to structure your company to get the best out of BEE for your company so that your company ends up benefiting by the BEE and not working for BEE. And I think that's an important thing. So this is a very generic presentation that I've done for you. It's going to give you a very broad understanding of BEE. If you need any more details and it's not fitting into your profile of a company, please feel free, give me a call. So the primary purpose of the BEE Act and the codes, which we call the Codes of Good Practice, it's a couple of files of government legislation that is badly written, very difficult to understand. It's confusing, it's conflicting, but I think after doing it for the last 12 years, we've got a pretty good handle on it and we know what it is. So it's to address the legacy of apartheid and promote the economic participation of Black people in South Africa. The procurement element on the BEE scorecard effectively forces businesses to purchase from BEE compliant companies. And this is a difficulty that we're all going through. So you'll be supplying a company, you'll say, well, I need your BEE certificate. And you say, well, I don't have a BEE certificate. What is my BEE certificate? I'm a tiny little operator. What's it got to do with you? And the bottom line is that companies get points from buying from you. And if you don't have your BEE certificate, your proof, they can't get the proof. They can't earn those points during their verification. Do small businesses require BEE certificate? Yes. So it's every institution in South Africa needs a BEE certificate or an affidavit which acts as your certificate. So do small businesses require them? Absolutely. Does Quibus need it for his operation? Absolutely. I pay him on a monthly basis and I can claim back my points from him on it. Will I be fined if I don't have a BEE certificate? No, there's no legislation in South Africa that says that if you don't have it, you're going to be fined and you're going to go to jail, like the Employment Equity Act or the Skills Development Act. There's none of that in place. So you're not going to go to jail. But it is your right of admission to get into companies. And if you don't have it, it's going to bite you. So to further complicate it, the government has made it even more difficult. So they have these things called an EME or a QSE threshold. And that's basically the levels, and we're going to go over this in more detail, the levels of the certification that takes place. So your EME, for all intents and purposes, unless you're in a specialized sector, like the marketing advertising sector, any turnover from 0 rands to 10 million in your financial year. So whatever your 12 months financial year is what you get measured on. So you cannot legally fill in an affidavit on month number 11 when you're sitting at 9.5 million, knowing you're going to go over 10 million in month 12. That is called fronting, and there's massive fines, 10 years jail sentence, 10 years worth of, 10 years, potentially 10 years jail sentence, or 10-year fine of your company turnover. A QSE is a company with a turnover between 10 and 50 million rand a year. Again, unless you're in specialized sectors, so the transport sector talks about 35 million. And then your generic, which is your big companies, is over 50 million. So you need to have a look down the left there and see, now, what am I falling under? And how do I justify that? So the general codes of good practice is the general one right up at the top. And that is what the large majority of companies fall under. If you are going into any of the other sectors, you need to decide of where do you recover more than 50% of your turnover in your company. So let's assume you're a building contractor and you do a lot of sales of building or of non-building material, because if it's building material, it will automatically fall under construction, but you do plant hire and things like that at the same time. Is more than 50% of your revenue being generated from the actual construction sector, or is it being derived from the codes of good practice? And you can justify it and you can fall under those. You cannot choose legally which sector you want to be under. And so, well, you know, I'd rather be under this because it's easier than going into that one. You can't do that. So I've put together a web page for you, specifically for this, which is linked down the bottom. And that's this here. And all the affidavits are on there for your free use. All you do is you would click on that, you open it up, and you will get your affidavit, whether you're an EME or a QSE under 10 million or under 50 million. You fill it in and you complete it, and that is your BE certification for the next 12 months of your year. So an EME, just to go over that in more detail, of 0 to 10 million rand a year with less than 51% black shareholding in the company. Now, black is defined as black, as in African, Indian, colored, and or Chinese of South African descent. You would be a level 4. If you have more than 51%, up to 99.99%, you would be a level 2. And if you have 100% black shareholding, you will be a level 1. And it's as simple as that. It really is. No cost. You cannot be charged. Auditors' letters don't work. You can draw it off the CRPC, but it's a pain to get that documentation off. Your easiest is click on the link, download it, fill it in, get somebody to commission it, a commission of oaths to commission it. Don't put 0. Please write 0 and put in brackets next to it a 0. You filling it in, it's a legal document. And what you don't want to have is put down, I have 0 black ownership in my company, and somebody, your opposition, goes and puts a 1 in front of the 0, and it's now reflected as 10%. You don't want to have to prove that it wasn't you that's done it. So just put a 0 in next to it, in brackets, the 0. Okay, there's a whole lot more of them that are coming about. You'll see that there's I think there's 20 or 30 of them if I'm not mistaken. So as a QSE, which is your turnover between 10 and 50 million in your financial year, if you have less than 51% black shareholding, you cannot use the affidavit. You need to be verified and certified by a verification company that is a SANAS approved verification company. And I'll take you through the next slide what that actually means. If you have more than 51% or more, you're automatically a level 2 via your affidavit. And if you have 100% black shareholding, you're automatically a level 1 via an affidavit once again. So there's no cost. So the government, as the DTI, has incentivized you to get a black shareholding within your company. And I think there's a big misconstruction about what is a shareholder in the company. And there's various entities that you can put in place. You can do trusts, you can do educational trusts, you can do community trusts, you can do employee share ownership trusts with key people in your company. You can do a generalized staff trust for all your staff in your company. And what it means is that 51% of the dividend, the net dividend that is accrued to your company, would then be split at year end as a incentive to your staff to participate in the value of the company. Okay, so it's really not the end of the world. It can be done. And any of the accountants online would be able to tell you very quickly that it is you've got to do a solvency and liquidity test on your company to declare whether you can or cannot declare a dividend at year end, depending on the financial status of your company. So it's not the end of the world. So let's have a look at a QSE scorecard for a company that doesn't have ownership. So you would be measured under ownership, and it's out of 25 points, and that equates to the net equity value within the company. So if you have done an ownership structure and you've done 10%, hypothetically speaking, Ownership would then be 10 out of the 25 points that would be available to you, providing that it's net value. So you cannot give shares with an accumulated debt on those shares that have not been repaid towards the company. Management control is the amount of management, Black, Indian, colored, or Chinese management within the company in management decision-making positions. That, in other words, influence the outcome of a company in a way or means. So a personnel manager officer could be signing off leave forms. A security manager would be controlling the security. A distribution manager would be controlling the distribution, etc. So there's a matrix that we fill in on that, and it's based on your employment equity reports that go hand in glove with that, and it's filling those gaps to maximize the potential points. Skills development is the amount of skills that you spend on Black people, increasing their capabilities and capacity within the company. Also on various levels. Enterprise and supply development is actually 3 elements that they've rolled into one. It's your enterprise development, which means you identify an enterprise that will one day become a supplier to you. And with them becoming a supplier, they would have a BE certificate, and then you would earn procurement points out of that. So that 30 points is why you're all getting hung up at the moment by your suppliers or your customers asking for your BE certificate. Your BE certificate directly contributes towards that. Socioeconomic development is the amount of money, time, effort, or goods that you would donate to a worthy cause, a charity, in other words, within the country. There are no bonus points on the QSE scorecard. It's straightforward, and that's the way it is. On a generic company, which is 50 million plus, all companies, irrespective of their ownership, gets measured on the generic scorecard. So ownership is out of 24, management control is out of 19, skills is under 20 with 5 bonus points for absorption of learners that you've educated and now get employed on a full-time basis within your company. Again, supply and enterprise development, the one that you're being hung on. 44 points available there. Socioeconomic development is your 5 points that you talk about. So the total amount of points is 109 with 9 bonus points. So we've gone over all that side of it. Now you're still sort of probably confused as I was when I started BE to say, well, okay, that's great. I've got all that now. How does this equate to a level within my company? How do I get a rating level, which just died on me, which is there, but it's gone. Okay, I will come back to that. So let's have a look at preferential procurement. And this is the thing that is why your suppliers are asking you for a BE certificate every time. So BE procurement spend from all suppliers. Now, everybody is an empowering supplier based on your BE recognition level. So whether you're a level 1 or a level 8, there's 5 points available. They have to achieve 80%. And what does that mean? It means I buy R1 million worth of goods and services. 800,000 Rand needs to be from companies that are BE compliant, people that have a BE affidavit or have a BE certification, and that does not include a non-compliant certificate. Then I get bonus points again coming in. So if it's EMEs, anybody under 10 million Rand, I get an additional 3 points, providing 15% of my R1 million is purchased from them. Now, this is great news for small businesses because this gets your foot in the door. These are difficult points for companies to get because everybody does business with big companies. The next one is BE procurement spend from all QSEs, all companies under 50 million Rand. You get 4 points if the company achieves 15% of the entire spend. You get another 9 points if those QSEs are at least 51% Black owned, and you get another 4 points if they're 30% Black woman owned. So what would the ideal company be? The ideal company would be a 51% Black woman owned company. It's either an EME or a QSE, because that will give you the maximum amount of points to purchase from. And this is the whole government's idea behind it, of taking these companies and building them up to become suppliers in the industry and give everybody an opportunity. So you're looking at a total of 25 points that are available purely from somebody else's BE certificate. That's all it is. Those are free points for companies by buying from the right companies. And my slide is back. So what happens is, you will see, if you add up what you've got under management control and ownership, supply and enterprise development, you will see that you've achieved a total, for argument's sake, of 70 points. You would then have a look down the qualification here and you'd say 70 points. More than 70, 70 or more, but less than 75, that means I'm a level 6. That means a company buying my goods or services can claim 60% of my spend, of their spend with me. So they spend R1 million in a year with me. They can only claim 60% of it. But if I'm a level 3 and I've achieved 91 points, they can claim that R1 million, they can multiply it by 110%. If I'm a level 2, 125%, and a level 1, 135%. And the whole idea behind that simply is that these companies, the more you support a level 4, 3, 2, 1, you cover off your shortfall on a level 5, 6, 7, 8. So it assists companies to build up their score. So let's have a look at a practical example. So this supplier, this customer, goes and buys R100 from all his level 1 suppliers. He can multiply that R100 by 135%. So his recognized spend was R100, but he's recognized as spending R135. A level 2, he also spent R100. He can recognize 125, a 300 Rand, and we go so down the whole way. And we end up at the non-compliance certificates, guys that don't have affidavits, that haven't submitted them, or don't have BE certification, or their certificate is expired, anything like that. 200 Rand, they can recognize 0 of that. So what the codes say, you have to achieve 80% or you drop a rating level, measured entity. They've purchased 1,100 Rands worth of goods, services, or from suppliers in a year. They multiply that by the recognized spend, which is 680 Rand. You divide your 680 into 1,100, and it comes in at 61.8%. They drop a rating level. And this, again, is what affects all of us sitting, listening here today. So what do? It's a problem. That's where we need to get. We need those maximum points. That's what we've got. So that company will quite simply take you and dump you. It's as simple as that. They will take the level 7s and 8s and non-compliance. They will look for suppliers that are level 4. They will give that business to them. Now all of a sudden they've still spent 1,100 Rand, but their recognized spend is 910 Rand. They achieve their 80% sub minimum of 82.78. And they probably get full points providing their split was right with black-owned EMEs and QSEs. And they will get those full points. And you're off that buying list. And unless you're going to then end up with a level 4, 3, 2, or 1, you're probably not going to be a supplier to them. Excuse me. And that's your issue. This is why we all sit here. And the old codes, this was never an issue. You were compliant or you're non-compliant, and it had no effect on your customers, but now it does. So skills, one of the elements runs, and these are the important things if you're going to be verified. So let's assume you're an EME and you're under 10 million Rand, you don't have any black ownership, and you decide that I need to be a level 1. I need to be a level 1. How do I do it? The only way I can do it is to get measured as a QSE, because there is no EME rating for a certification that you can move up your level. But to move yourself and say, I'm doing 3 million rand a year, I'm going to go into the QSE bracket, and I can get a certified BE certificate. I can build my scorecard, do away with my automatic rating, and I can potentially move my rating level up to a level 3 or 2 or 1. You would then need to do learnerships and training and bursaries for your students. You know, it equates to 2.5% of your payroll, of your livable amount to the skills development figure, and you can get that. There are various incentives available to you, and you can actually reduce your physical spend by 50% if you take advantage of the incentives. But it's got to run for 12 months. And the reason for 12 months is if you're having a learnership, and a learnership would cost you anything between 30 and 45,000 Rand, you would pay that learner a stipend of 3,500 Rand per month. That stipend forms part of your skills spend. So if you had a skills spend of 100,000 Rand, hypothetically speaking, you're paying a student 3,000 Rand a month. 3,000 times 12 is 36,000 Rand, plus your learnership fee of 40,000 Rand. You're up to 90,000, what's that, 40,000 plus 30,000, 70,000 Rand already. You could probably do the rest with in-house training and short courses. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to look at it and say, wow, I've got to blow 100,000 Rand on skills. And if you did that, you would still be entitled to claim back a lot of that money from the CETA and from the H12, which is a government incentive, and the ETI. It's a lot of money that you can get back. So if you aren't registered with the CETA at the moment, I would certainly suggest that you all get registered. You're paying your money anyway, and you're entitled to that money back. Procurement runs for 12 months. So every month that you're spending 100,000 Rand with a supplier, the longer you leave that, the more difficult it is to fix at the end of the period. So let's assume you're buying 100,000 Rand a month with a supplier that is currently non-compliant, and you wake up to this fact in month 8. You've spent 800,000 Rand with a non-compliant supplier. How are you going to make that 800,000 Rand up by year end with a compliance certificate? You're not going to. So it's your easiest points is to follow that on a monthly basis. Employment equity, management control, and ownership are all measured at the start date of the financial period. So you've got to look at that as to what are you going to do in your plan to meet those objectives, to maximize the points that you would need throughout the year. Socio-economic development is measured at the end of your financial period, because you really won't know what type of profit you're going to make, and it's a percentage of net profit after tax in your company would be your target. So what you need to do is you need to focus on skills and supply and enterprise development from tomorrow, if you want to go ahead. You need to do your EE, your employment equity, and a WSP, and you've got to keep that. Those are statutory requirements by law. You've got to do those. You have time to implement an ownership deal if you want, but remember the penalty. If you don't, it's a priority element. You will drop a rating level if you don't have a minimum of 10% black ownership in your company. Only 10%. I've put in a couple of useful links there for you as well that you can look at. So I've given you the website, which is where the thresholds are. I've given you any news and updates that come about changes that's on my website. I've given you another one of all our services, which is a lot of information for you that you can read through and you can take your time and you can digest. I've asked you all to subscribe to our newsletter. It's free, it's once a month, and it's about a 2-pager that comes through with links on it, so you don't get this long asked memo that comes through trying to bombard you. It's not a sales newsletter. It's giving you an update as to what's happening in the industry. Are there changes in any of the targets? What is happening? We cover things like OHS. Are the Department of Labour inspections in your area, or aren't they in your area? What are they looking at? What have we learned? What haven't we learned? And then if you need a quote, there's a link there that you can just click on and you can get a non-obligation quote for any of the services that we operate. So I've tried to make this a shorter session than normal because it's complicated and there's a lot of information here that can become very, very confusing and you can be lost very quickly in this process. But I think don't underestimate it. Your BE certificate opens doors for you in the industry. There's no doubt. You have to be a minimum of a level 4. You've got to strive for that. If you're in construction, you have to have a minimum of a level 2. If you're in ICT, you need to have a minimum of a level 2. So there's a lot of tender business, not governmental tender, but tender business that comes through those sectors, and where BE becomes a big a decision in who they appoint. And those things that you need to consider. If you're currently doing 5 million Rand a year without a BE certificate, and the doors are being slammed in your face, could you do 15 million Rand in a year by opening the doors and having that ticket to get in? Also, if you have a decent BE certificate, level 1, 2, 3, or 4, are you advertising it? Is it in your, have you put it down on your email signature? Proudly level 1, 2, 3, or 4. Is it available on your web page? Because a lot of companies look for companies that are going to contribute towards their procurement spend. And they'll go on your web page to see if it's available. If it's not available on your web page, you know what? There's another million web pages out there that it is on. They will take the business there. They're not going to bother with you. But you've got to do that. So I think it's going to result in probably a lot of questions, I'm hoping, and I'm going to leave the floor open to you. Thanks very much for your time, and I hope you all got some benefit out of that.
Yes, Hilton. I think if any of you want to open your mic and have a discussion, just let me know in the chat box. And why I keep the unmute button locked is only because sometimes we get Zoom bombers that go crazy and people that doesn't unmute. So if you want to just drop in the chat box, unmute please, and then I will unmute you. First question from Kanita is, with using the ETI under skills development, is the stipend for students compulsory?
Absolutely, it is. It's one of the criteria that you have to. But then the question is, I mean, I'm not, Kanita, are you talking about an employed or a staff member that is put onto a learnership, which you can have a staff member. If it's a staff member that's earning 10,000 Rand a month that you put onto a learnership, your skills spend would automatically increase by that 120,000 Rand a year, which is the salary portion. If it's a student externally, basically they're saying we don't pay those students a salary, we pay them a stipend. The stipend is used as a method for them to get to class and to survive because they're not going to be working. So yeah, very, very important. You have to have a stipend.
Yes, Kanita. Yeah, she says it's not staff, and then she says thank you. So Kanita, if you have any other question you rather want to unmute, please do that. Hilton, okay, someone asked how do they get BEE? So I just told them they need to reach out to you per email and you will help and assist them with their questions. Amanda is asking, Hilton, what is the learner specification in terms of having a learnership to increase your level from 4 to 3, for example?
Okay, so under the skills element, it's one of the elements. It's about that you earn maximum points for on skills. And under that, you have internal training and external training. So internal training would be your day-to-day training that you would track via a register and almost a mentorship type agreement that you would say, like, you know, we meet once a week and we know what we're doing and I'm not happy with this and I need you to increase your knowledge on that, and let me help you with this and bring you up to speed. That is only worth 15% of your entire skills spend. So it's a very, very small contributor. Learnerships, external learnerships are the way that most of the companies go. They would employ somebody externally. So let's assume, Amanda, you need a secretary. So you would go to the local secretarial school and you would ask them for a secretary from last year, somebody that qualified as a secretary last year in your area, and they'd be only too happy to give it to you. You would phone these people up, you would get them in for an interview, and you would say, I'm going to put you on a learnership for a year of basic business administration, of telephone skills, of PRO, anything like that. And I will pay you a stipend of 3,500 Rand a month for a 12-month period until your learnership is completed. That would probably earn you full points on your skills spend, which means by earning those full points, your overall rating level would go up. But it's a good question. Let's see what that's going to cost. So that's going to cost you 3,500 Rand a month, plus probably in the region of 30 to 40,000 Rand on a learnership. What can you claim back? So you can claim back up to 20% of your skills spend via the SETA automatically. Of that money that you pay to SETA every month, you can claim back 20% of that. You can claim back the ETI if that person is under the age of, I stand corrected, I think it's 31 years of age. You can claim that back, and that's about $1,000 a month that you can claim back. Then you can claim back the H12 regulation, which is an amount that you reduce your tax effectively that you pay to SARS on a monthly basis. So if you add that all up, all your savings that you're getting back, you're actually ending up with a staff member working for you for just over 1,000 Rand a month for the year. And at the end of the year, if you like that person, you can employ them. If you don't, you can replace them with somebody else that gets another 12 months worth of experience. Does that answer you?
Yeah, please, Amanda, let us know. Audrey asks, what happens when the learners drop out?
Okay, so there's a time period with that, and they talk about a 3-month. If there's been a 3-month time period, you will get the credit for that. Normally, there's a very good reason for a learner to drop out, and that's normally illness, it's normally financial pressure at home, it's transport, it's things like that. So the days of slave labor have long been abolished, even by the DTI. So they will allow you to replace that learner, or they will take that learner and you can get the credit for what you have done for that learner.
Then another question on the previous question is, does the staff member need to be black, colored, disabled, someone from class disadvantage?
So if you're a QSE, an EME or a QSE, so your turnover is from 0 to 50 million Rand a year, you don't have to focus on the disabled side. If it's above 50 million, there's a specific target for disabled employees as well. But I think that the important part to remember is the disabled, your ETI allowance and your H12 allowance increases dramatically if it is a disabled employee. So one of the biggest concerns we always have is when we go into companies, they talk about a disabled employee and they think that they have to make massive changes within their company to accommodate a wheelchair victim or an epileptic victim and build a sick bay, etc., etc. There are various degrees of disability within the judgment or the rating of a disability in South Africa. So the test that gets used by the verification companies as to what is a disabled person is, do you have to make any form of allowance for that disabled person within your company? So would a diabetic be allowed to eat at their desk? Would somebody with a sighting problem be automatically given a much bigger screen monitor to operate off? Would somebody with mental illness be allowed to go and see their psychologist or their psychiatrist during work hours? Any of those type of things that you're allowing a staff member with a disability, you're recognizing that and assisting them in that process, you would be able to claim as a disabled, providing there's a doctor's letter stating this is a disabled employee. But absolutely, we're talking BEE, Black, Indian, Colored, African.
Thank you for that, Hilton. I think another one is, someone just said, Exponential Brilliance uses the affidavit straight from Compliance Hub website on a daily basis. Thank you for sharing that we have the latest updated documents at any given time. Hilton, with all of the rules on BE changing on a daily basis, are there no prospects for them to increase the turnover limits on EME, QC, and generic?
From your lips to God's ears, please, I beg. No, I don't think they're going to. I really don't think they're going to. I think if you want my honest opinion with my experience of the DTI, that it's a very slow moving machine. We know that Minister Patel is pretty lackadaisical when it comes to BEE, and I certainly don't think he's applied his mind to anything in BEE. That's my personal belief. I don't think you'll see many changes coming. We heard that the BEE commissioner was very unhappy with a lot of the trusts that have been put into place, the evergreen trusts like the staff community trusts, and she felt that they weren't, there was no real transformation taking place with that. Because there was no physical ownership in a trust. The trust owns the shares and the people are the beneficiaries of that. So when the people leave, that accumulation of dividends simply accrues back into the trust. She didn't like that and she tried to change it. And Minister Patel came straight out and said, this is quite accepted. This is the way it will be. Literally wind in your neck and leave it alone. This is my department, not yours. So I don't see any changes coming about. I honestly don't. But that's I think that's a two-pronged approach that you're asking me. So a lot of companies out there legally are entitled to redefine their business. So let's assume I have a transport company and my threshold is 20 million. And I transport on a national basis, and then I open up a depot in Cape Town. Now I can either make that depot a subsidiary, or I can make that depot a standalone business and I can register it. If I make it a standalone business, then that entity in Cape Town would be eligible for its own BE certification, which means I could take it out of my national turnover. So if I was getting up to that 20 million and I opened a branch in Cape Town, I wanted to run it as a standalone branch for whatever reason, for any sound business practical reason, I can do that legally. What I can't do is take my business and split it up to circumvent the way the codes were intended and just split it so that I remain under the threshold of 10 or 20 million. That's fronting, that you can't do. But if you have a sound economic reason for splitting your business up geographically or by product or by service or whatever you want to, you're quite entitled to do that. Hope that answers you.
Right. Then Kanita asks, how are companies currently finding students for skills development?
Good question. We have a list of probably 1,000+ students that phone us on a regular basis, and we keep their details on a list. We've got a lady called Mimi Honeyball that's her function. She does the CETA listings. She does all the paperwork. She does the tri-party agreement between the student, the student, the company, and the CETA. We do the stipend payments to assist companies, etc., etc. So we do have a list of them. Sometimes it's difficult as far as geographics is concerned. If you're sitting with somebody in Marble Hall, we would go to the local communities and see what's available, possibly to a Damlin College and say who fell out last year or who are potentials for next year that we can educate and we can help further. We then do a learner readiness test on those students, which we found to be very important. It's very easy to appoint learnerships, but you want them to stick through, and you actually want to have the right attitude of getting people educated in the market and getting back into the mainstream. And this gives them the opportunity to do that. So a learner readiness test to qualify for the applicable NQF level for that staff member is seriously important. So please, if you need any learners, please feel free, drop me a mail, and I'll get Mimi on to you. And there's no charge for that service either, just to let you know.
Hilton, you are free giving today. That's good to know. I just want to check if there's anyone with questions. Daily basis. Okay, let's say there's Kanita says thank you very much. Anyone, is there any other questions you would love to ask about the BEE and in South Africa? If you want me to unmute yourself, please feel free to do. Hilton, while we're waiting, a question. So let's say I've my friend that is She's also a partner. We work together, Krupa, and she has a business called Masol. She is Indian and she has level 1, basically BEE, because she's a woman as well. And we've done business together, and she does the same as me. She does the team building as well, and she's done team building for companies. Is that a front if a company asks me for a BE level 1 certificate that we work for a company because she assists with, because she's also a facilitator part of that, or will that be seen as front? Should we have a separate company that is focused on that, or can we use a company because she has done team building and stuff through her own company? Will that be a problem?
So it's going to get back to how you're structuring your shareholding within the two companies. And that always becomes the issue. So if River comes in as a 51% shareholder within your company, that means she's going to be entitled to 51% of the decision making and 51% of the net revenue, of the net dividend that your company declares. Or you could do a joint venture between the two companies. That's a simple joint venture agreement that you draw up to say what you bring in, you're going to get X amount of, and what I bring in, I'm going to get X amount of. Then you would add your certificate up, the points from your certificate directly with the points of her certificate. You divide that by the percentage split. So if it's a 50-50, she's a level 1, and I'm going to use round numbers, you're a level 4, average out at a level 2, and that entity then, that joint venture, would go to market for business. So Grippa's Kalamardot business, which I've still got on the wall in my office, thank you, Grippa, and your company's level 4 certificate would result in a joint venture stating that the joint venture is now going to enter into the following marketing campaign, and we will share the revenue on a 50-50, 70-30, 60-40 split.
She says she likes the guaranteed 51% option more. But just to give an idea how we have done a few, she pays me basically then a salary for my fee, and she takes, so she works that in the edit, and then she takes a percentage of that. But I like the way you just structure it, and I think that is also a benefit for anyone out there that wants to collaborate together. I think the joint venture is a good option. Then I also see.
Look, I think, I can interrupt you for 1 second. I think, Grippa, the practical point of taking 51% of the shares within Quibus's company means that you're 51% liable for any mismanagement that he creates, because you're in there, and that's your limited, unlimited sort of liability within it. So it's very easy to run after the shareholding, but there are consequences when it goes wrong, and those are the things you need to be aware of. Are his shares in a family trust, or are they linked to any other companies? Are your shares linked to a family trust or any other companies? What are the pitfalls when it goes wrong? If there aren't any of those, and that's what you need to unpack, then it's a great option, but you've got to be careful.
I totally agree with you that, Hilton. I think with all of the laws that have changed with directorship, directors are being held more to the choices they make, because, that is one lesson I learned. I was a director of someone else in a company 50-50, and he just disappeared overnight and left me with all of the debt and everything. Yeah. So, and I was out because they couldn't find him, and then they come to the other director that stood for the company. So I think that is important. Be careful how you, and I said, I think that is also a marriage. Be careful who you go in a company with, and have that shares. And that's well said. I say, Amanda asks, say for example, I have a company, the turnover is nearing 10 million. 50% black owned. What is the cheapest and most efficient way to keeping it at a level 4, avoiding, of course, the rating company charges? Any ideas?
If you can legally put a few products into another company, you're an accounting company, so maybe have one division for accounting and one for tax compliance to reduce your total company turnover. That might be a consideration for you. Okay, good. Is there any other questions? I think Hilton,
you've answering, and I think this is something that is necessary for businesses to know about this, because I think it's going to become more and more part of our environment going forward. That is going to be put more in place and implemented. One question that I have is that someone sent me is with learnership. Is that a good way of, is it in a sense cheap labor in a sense? But it's not cheap labor, but can a company benefit? It's also a way of employment, and is it possible to employ all of this? It helps us company grows, and our spend on a monthly basis on salaries is so much less because we're employing learnerships.
Absolutely. I think there's a two-way street on this, and I think if you're going to go the learnership route, do it for the right reason, and that's to bring people into the mainstream economy and take them off the grant system within the country. Get somebody employed, get the benefits towards your company from it, but let them ultimately get the benefit. Is it cheap labor with the government incentives in place? Yes, it is cheap labor. But I'm sure any student would rather earn 3,500 Rand a month as a stipend than sit at home on 350 Rand government grant. Do companies use this? Yes, they do. I have companies that employ up to 200 students a year. They use them in warehousing. They've used them as debtors clerks, debtors assistants, creditors clerks, creditors assistants, secretaries, switchboard operators, a lot of distribution in the distribution channels. One of the big IT companies employs about 500 trench diggers a year for laying cables on learnerships. It certainly is a cheap labor. But I think we can find fault with anything. But cheap labor and education to open the economy for people that probably will not get a job if they don't have it is the way to go. Age limit, up to 31 years of age is the ETI. Go for younger. And
do you need to
looking for people that you can keep for a long time within your company?
Okay, because the other question is, do you need to have a place of work for them? I'm just thinking about COVID now and working from home. Those people are on training and so forth. How's that affecting? Does that impact having them work from home?
No, Quibus, everybody's doing e-learning these days and distance learning, so it's been accepted by the rating agencies and by the CETAs. It's not a problem.
Then on the learnership, is there an age limit for enrolling learners in learnership?
31. There's no age limit for it, but if you want the full incentives, then you want to claim the ETI, the youth wage incentive.
Okay. And then if not an option to split services, not my company, but the company I'm talking about has contracts with big companies in the financial service industry, not an option to split. Will it be sufficient option to sell the 1% to the 50% black partner is it cheaper than rating?
Yeah, I think yes, it would. It definitely would. I mean, a B certificate for a 50 million plus company is probably going to start off in the region of 15,000 Rand. Then you need a consultant to go through that. You need to spend a lot of money on skills and supply development and enterprise development and socioeconomic development and upliftment programs and things like that. It certainly would be your cheapest option, but you've got to make sure that you're running under the 50 million turnover. So you might end up doing both at the end of the day, opening separate divisions or branches. But if you're a company with a turnover of a couple of million Rand a year, 4 or 5 million Rand a year, and you know that if you did a B certificate and you got to a level 2 and your business could double or treble, I would absolutely, no doubt whatsoever, I would do a 51% trust in my company, either via a key person trust or an employee share ownership trust or a community trust or an educational trust where people that are really deserving of it end up benefiting, unless you can find somebody with money that's physically going to buy the shares, which is always the first prize. But I think under COVID and the lockdown and everything that everybody's been through, it's very, very difficult to find people with money, and the people with money are running off to blue chip shares at the moment. They're not worrying about little businesses.
Okay. And then someone just mentioned, yeah, ETI is 27 years and not family members. I think it probably is I don't know if it's a question or a statement.
I will check that out for you. I don't know why I said 31. You might be right, but I'll drop you all a mail. I'll put it on the link. I'll find the ETI actually the Gazette, and I'll put it on the link for you. You might be right, Marion. Apologies if you are.
Thank you for that. And then, so if learners are working from home, what will the stipend then be used for?
For them to survive.
Okay, good answer. Anyone else? I'm just popping Hilton's email address again in the chat box. If you're welcome to email him if there's any other questions that come up after today. Any other questions while we have, and then we can, I think we can, it's an hour now. I don't know if there's any other questions, and then we can end it. I know Hilton is also busy. I just want to commend all of you. Thank you for showing up. Just so that you know, we are uploading this on an online portal that you will be able to go through all of the videos if you've missed any of them. We also will have a certificate for you when you've completed all of the videos that you will receive from Compliance Hub as a certificate that you are upskilling yourself in your business. So if any of you are interested in that and you're not getting access to by whatever mean that we've missed your email address, please feel free to reach out to info@quibusvista.com as a way of doing it, or Taryn@quibusvista.com to give you access to that. We're just finalizing some of it still, so we will probably launch it next month somewhere and give people the opportunity to access that. Amanda says separate certificates. Hey, Taryn. Yeah, so Taryn is busy working on that, so we will look at that. We're finding out an easy way of doing it, so easy way so that we don't have to create the certificates. There's a system that we're looking at where you put in your name and the certificate is generated for you. Audrey says, thank you, very informative sessions. She's enjoying it. Thank you, Audrey, for being here. Samuel Tangasi, nice to see you, Samuel. It's great to have you. Samuel Tangasi, I believe it's that you are a doctor and you are planning big things, so welcome to being here. And Joel and everyone that has showed up today. Yeah, everyone, I don't see any other questions at the moment, so awesome content. I have learned a great deal today. Yeah, thank you everyone, and thank you for those who asked questions. And I don't see any at the moment for online. I just see people are liking it and are just viewing it. So thank you for that, Hilton. I appreciate your time. Everyone, if you have any questions, it's hilton@chconsult.co.za, wherever you are looking from. If you are watching this recording, please feel free to reach out to Hilton and he will be able to assist you. And Hilton is also has a lot of experience in business. So if you need any questions on your business, on costing, pricing, whatever, Hilton will be there, be able to assist you as well. Hilton has vast knowledge, not only from compliance, but from running business as well, employees, teams, etc. So please feel free to reach out to him. Hilton, have a beautiful day, and the rest of you as well.
Thanks, everybody.